Welcome to another episode of The Brand Called You, a podcast and podcast show that brings you leadership lessons, knowledge, experience, and wisdom from thousands of successful individuals from around the world. I am your host, Ashutosh Garg, and today I'm privileged to welcome a very senior professional who's invested a lot of his time in water, Mr. Jon Kaufman from the US. Jon, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. And I am very senior. I'm 2 years older than you.
Yeah, so we are the same vintage. I always say we are the baby boomers, and a very large part of our audience are the millennials.
Yes.
So Jon is the Chief Executive Officer of Global Water First. He's also an author, and all of you know I'm very partial to authors. He's an author of a book titled Long Walk on a Dry Road, and if we have time, we'll talk about that as well. So, Jon, before we talk about Global Water First, tell me in brief your own journey.
Yeah, my background is owning a marketing company in the Silicon Valley, and I did that for about 35, close to 40 years.
Mm-hmm.
And but my passion has always been water, because it seems like it's the kind of thing that you can have great impact with not if you have the right technology, not a lot of effort, or the impact is incredible. And one of the things that I spell out in my book is, how did a guy in Silicon Valley marketing become this water dude, all over the world? And it was a cruise that I was on with my sister, who was dying of cancer. She had ovarian cancer for about 4 years. And between chemo treatments, I would take her out on some adventure, and this was one cruise, which was one of her last. And we were in the port stop was in Haiti, which was not in the brochure, Ashutosh.
Yeah.
It was, I assure you, it was not in the brochure to go to Haiti. But the cruise lines own a little island or a little peninsula in Haiti, and so 3,000 people get off the boat onto tenders, onto Haiti, marimba bands, and just incredible wealth of food and everything. And then on the way back on the tenders to go back to the ship that's waiting for us on the horizon, my sister and I look back, and there's 1,000 Haitians, many of the women with babies on their backs, coming out of the jungles, going through the garbage cans, pulling out chicken wings that we had thrown away, and corn of the cob half eaten, and they were gleaning all this, and it was just stunning.
Yeah.
And my sister, who I knew this was the last chance that I was going to be able to take her out, we both just started crying. And so I made a promise to her at that point that I'm going to do something about that. I didn't know what to do at that point. This was about 15 years ago. And after she passed away, I kind of figured that water is such a fulcrum issue. Like, if you solve water, you can solve so many other things.
Well said.
So that's what got me into it.
And then let's move to Global Water First. So tell me about what you're doing here, and what was your motivation to start?
Well, I actually started with a Rotary project. I got recruited by a friend into Rotary, and I joined because I wanted to do something and kind of disrupt the way water is provisioned for the poor, because it's really quite crazy. You basically put a water point someplace with a pump and a well that is only going to last 3 to 4 years. The water, at any given time, 60% of all the pumps and wells are inoperable in the world.
Correct.
And this is on many authority. And so so you've done that, and then women are walking 5 miles a day with 40 pounds of water on their head.
Correct.
And that's all they do. Right. So what's wrong with this picture? It doesn't make any sense. So we set about to disrupt that in Rotary. I started a project called H2 Open Doors. That's at h2opendoors.org. You can look at that. And we would raise money through Rotary to do projects, and we would do probably 6 or 7 installations a year for the
Mhm.
last 13 years or so in about
Mm.
15 countries.
Mm.
And I settled upon a membrane technology. In other
Mhm.
words, this is taking the bacteria and viruses and cysts out of the water as opposed to just killing it and leaving it in the water
Yeah.
like UV or chemical treatment. So you're drinking a glass of dead bacteria, basically.
Mm.
We actually are able to remove that completely.
Mm.
And that company is based in Colorado that makes I think the state of the art equipment. It's called Innovative Water Technologies,
Mhm.
and they make things that are completely off grid.
Mm.
Some are on grid, but it can virtually take any kind of water from any
Mm.
kind of source
Mm.
and turn it into a higher quality water than the WHO and the EPA
Mm.
standard.
Mm.
So that we were doing in the philanthropic model.
Mm.
But then you start to realize, and after 13 years, 14 years almost in Rotary, just like every NGO,
Mm.
we're all competing for diminishing donor dollars.
Correct.
It's just going away.
Mm.
So I had started Global Water First with a Rotarian friend of mine,
Mm.
Steve Petskowski, and we set it up as a Delaware Public Benefit Corporation,
Mhm.
a la Ben and Jerry's and Newman's
Sure.
Own in the early days,
Mm.
Patagonia. But it's impact investment in
Mm.
that equal measure of shareholder return
Mm.
and public good, public benefit.
Mm.
They're held in equal esteem.
Okay.
And so we started a seed round. We raised pretty quickly about $550,000.
Mhm.
Did about 3 or 4, I think about 3 installations: Uganda, South Sudan, Ethiopia is one that's ready to ship out.
Mm.
And we realized that with using investor dollars
Mm.
instead of philanthropic dollars,
Mm.
we can get to a glide path that in the over the next 5 years, we'll put in 1,000 water systems
Mm.
throughout the world.
Yep.
And these are primarily water enterprises
Mm.
and wherever we can run by women. So
Mm.
that's Global Water First.
Fascinating. 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 You also make a statement when I was reading about you that the poor don't want handouts and hand-me-downs. They want opportunity and access. Please explain
Yeah.
this statement and how does this link in with Global Water First?
Well, Global Water First, the difference actually, it might be illustrative
Mhm.
if I compare the difference between H2 Open Doors and Global Water First, in that H2 Open Doors will do a hospital or will do a school,
Yeah.
whereas with Global Water First, we'll only do enterprises.
Mm.
The enterprises are run by the poor.
Mm.
They're mentored for about 3 years by whoever might be the integrated NGO. Most of these villages
Yeah.
have an NGO or a church or
Mm.
somebody, but they've been doing wraparound services for these
Mm.
villages for decades.
Mm.
And water is the issue that they haven't been able to crack. And
Okay.
so the water enterprises that we put in based on the capacity that the equipment that we use
Mm.
will provide 10,000 people every single day
Mm.
with at least 2 liters of water, and
Mm.
in some of the configurations, 4 liters of water every
Mm.
single day, 10,000 people.
Wow.
So we are, while we're aware of worldwide problems and philosophy and the overall issues about water, and boy, wouldn't it be great to be able to connect the drought with the flood
Correct.
states in the
Mm.
United States and in India and in Australia and everything.
Mm.
What we're doing is one village at a time.
Mm.
That's all
Okay.
our bandwidth is about.
Okay.
And we're really more self-reliance
Mm.
organization
Mm.
than we are a water organization.
Mm.
It's staggering how much money these communities are able to make. It's
Mm.
about it's a revenue share in Global Water First, 1/3, 2/3. The village retains 2/3 of the revenue.
Mhm.
Their share is about $200,000 a year.
Okay.
And by MOU, they have to use that money for their other essential social services, because I'm of the belief, I don't know what you feel about this, but of the 17 sustainability goals, if you take 6, 7, and 8, so 6 is clean water for all by 2030. 7 is reliable power and hopefully renewable power for all by 2030. And 8 is gainful employment. A subset of that, by the way, is human trafficking, right? But in other words, taking people in the position where they can make a living and perhaps even rise into the middle class. Well, I believe that if you were to take, for instance, 6 and 8, in other words, create water enterprises run and eventually owned by the poor, you're going to solve about 14 of those tiles. If you think about it, right?
Sure.
Just by using a force multiplier of number 6 and number 8
Well said.
in coordination.
Well said. Well said. But Jon, based on your own background as a marketing person, spent time in management, now in water, what, in your opinion, has been the reason for such a serious challenge to our water around the world?
Well, global water. I had seen your talk with Thomas Schulman and who's all about water security and so on. And I would echo a lot of the things that he's saying. I mean, we basically have century-old and in some cases 150-year-old infrastructure in place. And the good news, the reason for optimism is that there's a lot of good high-level thinking about this kind of stuff. For instance, what I mentioned before, bridging the communities that are prone to flooding with the communities that are prone to drought. And there are ways to do this that are shockingly simple. Some of the technology is already there right in front of us, but we're not thinking of it this way. And so this can be done. Lots of great innovations on water technology. The company that I use has really cracked the code just in about the last 12 or 13 years on doing water of 5 log removal, which means 99.999% pure. EPA standards is 4 log removal. At a very low cost. I mean, because of its output, it's like a tenth of a penny per gallon. I mean, it's just amazing how inexpensive it is. While at the same time, to me as a marketer, that provides an opportunity for the poor to be able to get in and compete with the big 4. The big 4 is Coca-Cola, Pepsi-Cola, Nestle, and Danone. They control 80% of the water market, the bottled water market.
Correct.
Well, we believe that the poor ought to be the 5th player in that, with an exception that they will never, ever, ever, as long as I have a breath, use single-use bottles. This is the catastrophe.
Correct.
There are other ways to provide this water than this stupid idea of single-use bottles that just never get recycled.
Well said. Well said. The other challenge that I have been talking to a lot of people about is this whole question of water conservation or water harvesting. What, in your opinion, is the success of these schemes? Are these really working, or is this a lot of lip service being provided by governments?
There's a long way to go. I mean, like, take California. That's where I'm from. I moved to Colorado to be closer to the factory. But in California, what did we do 50, almost 60 years ago? And why do we do it this way? Well, we put in a system of aqueducts to bring water from the Northern California down to the Southern California, and along the way be able to feed the agricultural industry.
Correct.
In what provides 60% of all vegetables and fruits in the entire world in that one area. And that was brilliant, except we did it as a river instead of a pipe. So half of that water that's available evaporates every day, so we do things like that. We really don't have a gray water program going anyplace. We don't have a recycling program. I remember I visited Singapore and I went to visit the new water plant. This was probably 25 years ago, I think. And they really were forced to invest in toilet to tap, what we would call toilet to tap.
Yeah.
And now new water, at the bottle, they've got this funny little mascot, which is a water drop with hands and arms. It's kind of creepy. But what that is now, 20 years later, the stigma of toilet to tap is gone because the water is purified through membrane technology. That's how it's done. And it's delicious water. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
We only have a certain amount of water. We are drinking dinosaur pee, if you think about it. I mean, it's kind of, it's the same H2O just being recirculated.
Absolutely.
So, the stigma we need to get over that and be able to do proper gray water reclamation and a lot of, the thing about the membrane technology that we're using is you can pull water out of a river, a lake, municipal water, of course, which is pretty bad in most places in the world. Really, any source. There's an installation that was done early on in the Congo, where water is being pulled out through this technology called the Sunspring. It looks like French onion soup.
Wow.
Water.
Wow.
And it can purify it and make it perfect.
Incredible.
And so the technology is there.
Yeah, I agree. And another case in point, and I remember I was in Israel about 4 years ago, and they seem to have handled their water. I mean, there's a separate pipe that runs along the water pipes, which is for recycling.
Yeah.
And, there's a lot to
That's
learn
right.
from Israel also, I assume.
Always is.
Absolutely. I agree.
I always think it is. Vegas is doing a good job, surprisingly enough.
Okay.
They've cut their consumption by about 26%.
Wow.
They're doing, I mean, kudos to them. They're really doing a good job. The places that are experiencing the impact of climate change, which is driving the drought even deeper and the floods even higher, right? What the prospects of solving that issue, of coordinating that with good wastewater or water or flood management, the way to do that, there's some really good minds thinking about this. NVIDIA is an example. NVIDIA is working on a worldwide AI, as you know, called Earth 2, which is basically a twin of Earth, and they can predict in this AI model weather patterns months from now, right? And so you need that kind of data-driven expertise as we start to figure out how to make water management more of a national issue. Where, this was tried in the 30s, by the way, in Australia. I'm trying to remember the name of the scheme, but they were trying to get water from the outer edge of Australia into the drought center, and they found that it was too expensive, so they abandoned it. But this is something that's possible now. I mean, there's a lot of technology that makes things and these visions possible.
No, I completely agree with you. I remember reading many years ago about one of the countries in the Middle East who actually tried to bring in a huge iceberg, floated across all the way from and see if that fresh water could work, but probably too expensive. But John, coming back to your own global water first, you said you're taking it one village at a time. Can you share with us some of the positive experiences you've had where you've implemented a project?
Well, it's interesting. I mean, India is a great example. Let's talk about that a little bit.
Sure.
I brought 30 people over, Rotarians over, to do NID, National Immunization Day, polio drops. And then after we were done with that, then we put in a water system. We put in one of these sunsprings at a school outside of Agra. And the purpose of that was to be able to sell the water and make enough money to pay for all of the, basically most of the budget of this school of about 450 children. And so the water, they put out about the capacity is about doing 1,000 of those 5-gallon bottles every day of pure water. And that's the capacity. They're at about half of that. They're doing about 500 bottles a day. They've got about 300 subscribers in the nearby community that subscribe where the bottles are delivered to them maybe every Wednesday or whatever day, and then the empties are picked up. So we're reusing these 5-gallon bottles about 100 times.
Wow.
And so this provides enough income for the school to satisfy its needs, because it's bringing these very poor children, and a lot of them, it's a boarding school for a lot of them who just don't have a home.
Yeah.
So that was one of the first ones that we did. We just went online. I'm kind of skipping through a lot in the middle, but our newest one that went online was one that we put in last year in outside of Kampala, Uganda. It's at it's in a village called Kaboja, 6,000 people. In that community, there's a wonderful, very innovative vocational university called CIDI, CIDI.
Yeah.
And we put in a complete water plant there. The Global Water First did. And it was the whole plant cost us about 135,000. We had to do a very deep borehole. We had a building, a bottling building. On the top of the bottling building are solar panels that run the submersible solar pump that's in the borehole, always filling up the tanks with raw water. They're always full. And then in the bottling building, as they're filling these 5-gallon bottles, and this is called city water, as they're filling it, that creates a draw from the tank through the membranes of the sunspring, and then it fills the water, fills the bottle. And so this plant is completely a solar plant. There's no electricity except for the solar panels on the sunspring. There's 2 solar panels on the sunspring that bring water under pressure and then pump it with an inboard pump that pump it back to the to the faucets to fill. And so this is the kind of thing that can be completely off grid in certain situations. We've got another one in South Sudan, in Juba, that's run by former Lost Boys. The Lost Boys of South Sudan, and they run this business, and they're selling the water, the 20-liter 5-gallon bottles, to other NGOs in South Sudan.
Okay.
And then next month in October, and I'm really excited about this, we're going to Kenya, 2 different Masai Mara.
Wow.
I'm sorry, Maasai villages, one in Amboseli and the Mara.
Yeah.
And we're putting 2 enterprises there as well.
Amazing.
And each one is expected to, again,
fantastic,
raise $200,000 a year.
That's wonderful. Jon, I've got time for only one more question. And
make it a good.
This one is for the many people who will listen to our conversation. Based on your incredible understanding of what's happening in water and Global Water First, what would you say are 3 lessons you would want to leave with our listeners and viewers on the subject of water?
Oh, wow, that's a great question. I think I have an argument within Rotary all the time. When Rotary does projects, a lot of times what guides them to a solution is the cheapest solution. Like, let's just do the cheapest solution, and even if it's not sustainable and it won't be there in 10 years or 20 years, let's do it, because it's a Band-Aid mentality. So I think one of the biggest lessons is that what philanthropy is great for is Band-Aid. It's not great for permanent restructuring. I even think, I got to tell you, I even think the SDG goals are misnamed.
Mm.
Sustainable development goals.
Yeah.
I think it needs to be regenerative.
Mm.
The earth doesn't want, we can't just say we will do no more harm.
Mm.
That's not good.
Mm.
We have to go to regenerative and restorative
Correct.
solutions.
Well said. Well
Both
said.
with the earth, the
Yeah.
planet, and with. I hope that answers that.
Absolutely, it does. But and on that note, and your amazing thoughts on philanthropy, on the regenerative goals that the world needs to look at. Also, your comment that the cheapest solution may not always be the best. Thank you so much for talking to me, Jon, about your own journey. Thank you for sharing with me your amazing story of your visit to Haiti with your sister. God bless her soul. Thank you for talking to me about H2 Open Doors and all the work that you're doing in so many different villages. I can just end by saying more power to you and and your entire team at Global Water First. Thank you for talking to me and good luck to you.
It was an honor, Ashutosh. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to the Brand Called You videocast and podcast, a platform that brings you knowledge, experience, and wisdom of hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Do visit our website www.tbcy.in to watch and listen to the stories of many more individuals. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for the Brand Called You.